Today we're going to visit all the places that Swami Vivekananda visited when he spent 3 months in San Francisco.
Swami Vivekananda was an Indian yogi and mystic who brought yoga and Vedanta to the West. He visited America 2 times and established centers of Vedanta society. Summer and I met in an ashram in India, and we do yoga and meditation every day. Right now we are in Oakland, and on February 22, 1900, Swami Vivekananda took a train from Los Angeles, California to Oakland.
Oakland in 1900 had the Southern Pacific Mall, which was a massive railroad wharf and ferry pier located just a few blocks from where we are at right now. He came by train from Los Angeles and then transferred to a ferry right here and took the ferry to San Francisco. And there's the ferry. This is a battery-operated ferry, but back then Swami Vivekananda must have taken a steam-operated ferry.
So what we are going to do right now is board the ferry so that we can witness the same sights and sounds that Swami Vivekananda must have witnessed.
But I guess back then they wouldn't pay with their phone for it. Morning. Let's go get the best seats.
Swami Vivekananda stayed in San Francisco and gave many talks here, but he also gave talks in the surrounding towns of Oakland, Berkeley, and Alameda. He took the ferry quite often to reach these places and spent a lot of time on the boat. The blue skies, the cold and brisk air, and the bright sunlight that you see here are what Swami Vivekananda must have encountered in 1900 when he came here.
So these cranes behind me might look familiar to you because you might have seen them in the Star Wars movies. Did you know that George Lucas, the creator of the Star Wars saga, took inspiration from those cranes when he created the snow walkers for the Star Wars movies? Why am I talking about Star Wars? Not just because Ash and I are big Star Wars fans, but actually Swami Vivekananda had a big influence on the Star Wars saga. So the author Joseph Campbell was a devotee of Swami Vivekananda, and he took a lot of these teachings and brought them into his book, A Hero with 1,000 Faces. George Lucas then read this book, loved the book, and took that knowledge to bring it into his Star Wars saga. He had the feeling that America was missing a great story like Ramayana or Mahabharata. So he created the Star Wars saga, and there's a lot of Vedantic and yogic elements in this movie. And it's crazy because every time when Ash and I watched them, we thought, wow, this feels so yogic. The Force, Yoda, yoga. Princess Leia gets kidnapped in Star Wars, and then Luke goes to save her, just like in Ramayana. Queen Sita gets kidnapped, and then Rama goes to save her. And you can almost say that Obi-Wan Kenobi is Swami Vivekananda coming to America, and Luke is the symbol of America, learning about Hinduism, learning about the Force, learning about yoga and the divinity within us.
So do you see the bridge behind me? That is the Bay Bridge. That connects San Francisco to Oakland. And parts of that bridge was actually built with pieces from the train station that Swami Vivekananda got down at in Oakland. This building you see here, that's the Ferry building. And this is actually where Swami Vivekananda would have gotten down, and he walked through that building. It's the same building that was here in 1900.
The Ferry building is the terminal for ferries in the Bay Area, but it's also an office building and a food haven. Before the road bridges were built, this building was the primary point of entry into San Francisco. It is still buzzing with activity to this day. Experiencing the hurly-burly of Market Street many times while waiting for a streetcar on his way to the East Bay Ferry prompted Swamiji to refer to this experience later in one of his Alameda talks regarding the attainment of yoga.
With every sense and every organ active, have you that tremendous peace in which nothing can disturb you? Standing on Market Street, waiting for the car with all the rush going on around you. Are you in meditation, calm and peaceful? In the cave, are you intensely active there with all quiet about you? If you are a yogi, otherwise not.
I just wanted to take a minute to thank the sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp. Now that we're spending a lot of time in a big city like San Francisco, one thing I realize is how overwhelming and stressful it can be to live here.
So many people, so many things happening all at once, the noise, the traffic, it can create lots of anxiety and mental stress. We also have a lot of friends who've been through a lot of bad life situations and we're struggling with trauma as a result.
That is why we want to thank our sponsor, BetterHelp, because they're on a mission to make starting therapy easier. I honestly strongly believe that seeking therapy is actually a sign of strength and self-awareness.
It takes courage to acknowledge when you need help and to take steps to improve your mental health.
BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy. The therapist, a trained mental health professional, is there to listen, ask you questions, and help you see things from a new perspective.
They can provide insights and teach techniques to manage emotions, reduce stress, and make positive changes in your life.
I honestly think one of the best features of BetterHelp is if the first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you really connect with.
If you're struggling and think you'd benefit from a therapy session,
click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/AshanSummer and get 10% off your first month of therapy. During his time in San Francisco, Swami Vivekananda often used the cable cars from the Ferry building up and down Market Street. Now the cable cars are just a little bit more modern, but they still go the same routes. Now we're gonna take one of those cable cars and do exactly that. Oh my God, I hope we still get a seat. It looks pretty crowded.
Swami Vivekananda spent about 4 months in San Francisco, and in these 4 months he gave over 61 talks, including formal as well as informal classes. He intermingled with the people of the area, impressing everyone with his powerful yet gentle presence. Some of his most moving lectures were given in San Francisco, including Is Vedanta the Future Religion?, Discipleship, The Soul and God, and I Am That I Am. He also gave a series of lectures on spiritual practice, emphasizing concentration, meditation, and worship. Those who came to hear him lecture found his appearance and delivery exceedingly attractive. Everywhere that Swamiji went, he gave completely of himself. A man of God of his stature had a tremendous lasting influence on the thought current of those who were fortunate enough to come into contact with him, and even on those who did not. As a world teacher, his spiritual power was subtle and penetrating. He himself predicted its effect would be far-reaching and long-lasting. He always emphasized the glory of our true spiritual self and the means to realize the truth directly. All, even the worst, are mother's children. The universe, good and bad, is but the play of the Lord, said Swamiji. Swamiji's effect on people was to lift their minds into the infinite reaches of their own nature. They would come away, as one of them put it, walking on air. Swami Vivekananda lived very close to where we are standing right now, and from here you can see the Ferry building. So Swami Vivekananda went up and down this way hundreds of times during his stay here.
So behind me you can see Union Square. Swami Vivekananda frequently visited Union Square in his time here. He actually held 24 lectures here in 4 different halls, which unfortunately no longer exist because of earthquakes and fires. But the Union Square is still a buzzing part of the city. Back then, Union Square looked different. It was adorned by lawns, small trees, and bushes. And the monument you see behind me was not there yet. That was only built in 1903. Back then, Union Square only had a flagpole. After his lectures, he would often go to a German restaurant in Little Italy owned by Mr. Juhl, which is exciting for me because I'm originally from Germany. So that's where we're going to go next. So Dr. Juhl's restaurant unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, but it would be right behind me on the other side of the street in this house. So this is where Swami Vivekananda might have had really good Klöße, Knödel, Spätzle, and I hope he had some potato pancakes.
So right now we're going to see if we can ride one of those old trams
The historical
to our
one.
destination.
Tower 3! This is California Street, downhill.
From the audiences at his lectures, he gathered a following to whom he could give more serious training. A flat was rented on Turk Street for a month, where he could give classes and private interviews, and where he could, as he once wrote of the process, mold disciples to conceive of the ideas of realization and perfect renunciation. With these smaller groups and individuals, he, as the guru, the spiritual teacher, could interact with them more intimately. There are many charming stories about Swamiji while he was living here in San Francisco amongst us, which demonstrates his multifaceted personality. His childlike nature, his mischievous sense of humor, his dignified regal bearing, unfathomable intellect, and his meditative indrawn mood. His companions relate that he attracted attention wherever he went. When he walked along a downtown street, people would stand and gaze at him, and in Chinatown, the Chinese would happily flock around him.
So we made our way to Chinatown.
Mrs. Alice Hemsborough, one of the 3 maid sisters at whose house in Pasadena Swamiji had lived during a part of his 11-week stay in Southern California, said this about Swamiji in Chinatown. He often went to Chinatown. For some reason, incidentally, he had a fascination for the Chinese. They would just flock after him, shaking themselves by the hand, as the saying went, to express their pleasure at his presence.
This is the old St. Mary's Cathedral. It stands today as it did in 1900 at the entrance to Chinatown on the corner of Grant Avenue and California Street. Parts of this cathedral were destroyed in a disaster in 1906, but the walls and granite steps are still the same as it were in 1900. And Swami Vivekananda loved spending time in this cathedral dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Let's go check out the inside of this cathedral.
it's so windy and cold right now. And I remember, I think Mark Twain said he never had a colder winter than a summer in San Francisco. So I was just wondering right now, how did Swami Vivekananda feel about this weather? Because he came from India, he must have been cold. But he was probably so yogic that nothing could bother him.
Yeah, he could probably just walk around without a sweater on.
Yeah.
So this Chinatown is actually way bigger than we thought. When we were on foot walking around, I thought this is Chinatown, but we've been driving for like 5 minutes now and we're still in Chinatown. So probably this is what Swami Vivekananda experienced even back in the day, is how busy it is here and people buying all their traditional items from the stores.
Oh God, the car is yielding. Oh my God. Oh my God. When Swami Vivekananda first arrived in San Francisco, this is where he lived. Right behind me, this is the exact location where the first Home of Truth was located. That building no longer exists. They built new buildings on top. There is a big hospital nearby that owns the lot where the house was located. But this is where he came and stayed when he first came to San Francisco. Right now, there are approximately 20 Vedanta Society centers across the United States, many of which also include temples or shrines.
Each center is run by monks of the Ramakrishna order and is a place for prayer, meditation, and spiritual discourse, serving as hubs for followers and seekers of Vedanta philosophy.
The activities and reach of the Vedanta Society reflect a blend of traditional Hindu teachings and modern spirituality, attracting both Indian Americans and non-Indians interested in Vedantic thought.